Good morning. I hope that your Wednesday's off to a good start. Mine is so far. I'm in my indoor office this morning. In with my battleship bug. And if you remember, the last couple of weeks I have been talking about John Wesley and sort of what made him tick theologically. I started 2 weeks ago with sort of the influences, what it is that influenced his thinking. And then last week I went from that into really looking at how Wesley handled Scripture, his conception of it. And as a reminder, that's one that was not on Facebook, but went straight to YouTube. So check out my YouTube channel to see that. Now this morning, we moved to something which I think may be surprising to some of you. Wesley and Original Sin. Wesley and Original Sin. So original sin is the idea that we are not basically good. That's the idea. Original sin is the idea that we are born sinners. You know, David refers to this in his famous penitential psalm, Psalm 51. In sin was I conceived. There's a couple of other places I'll refer to. So, Jeremiah 17. Jeremiah 17. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? And then go from there to Ephesians. And you were dead in the trespasses and the sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, which were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. So that's just a couple of examples of where we see original sin, where you see it in the Bible. And original sin is sort of standard Christian doctrine. Some people emphasize it more than others. Now, what may be surprising is that Wesley looked at original sin emphasized it just as much as others. I mean, he could emphasize it in terms just as strongly as Augustine or Luther or Calvin. And what makes him stick out with this is that if you set that against the backdrop of his age, Wesley's a child of a different era than Luther or Calvin. I mean, his ministry is 200 years after theirs. And the prevailing thought pattern, intellectual climate of the 18th century is rationalism. It's reason. It is the age of philosophy and rationalism. Deism was prevalent in and outside of churches, and there was a natural tendency in that intellectual climate to look at salvation, not so much in supernatural terms, in terms of deliverance from sin, divine pardon, heaven and hell kind of things, but rather to look at salvation purely in terms of social reform, better education, better training. And so when Wesley comes out and he emphasizes original sin as strongly as he does, it is a stark contrast with, like I said, the prevailing intellectual climate of his era. And he engaged in some pamphlet warfare with prominent deists of the age. So with Wesley, the idea of original sin is it is one of the underpinnings of his whole view of salvation. It's a foundation. It is the foundation for his conception or doctrine of the new birth, and his conception of the new birth is like crucial to his thought, far more important than original sin, but is theologically, philosophically, new birth doesn't work without original sin. The new birth as a work of God in our lives doesn't work without original sin. So original sin becomes it's necessary, but it's not as important as. Wesley said this: "What is original sin but the belief that humans are sinful by nature? We are not basically good." Actually, those are my words. He did write this: "Is man by nature filled with all manner of evil? Is he wholly fallen? Is his soul totally corrupted?" Or, to come back to the text, is every imagination of his thoughts on his heart continually evil? Allow this, and you are so far a Christian. Deny it, and you are but a heathen still. I'm going to read that again. Is man by nature filled with all manner of evil? Is he wholly fallen? Is his soul totally corrupted? Or, to come back to the text, is every imagination of the thoughts of his heart continually evil? Allow this, and so far you are a Christian. Deny it, and you are but a heathen still. That is, those are stark words, aren't they? Every thought of our hearts is evil. Every imagination that we have is evil. And if you believe that, then you're on your way to being a Christian. If you deny it, you're still a heathen. They got away with words back then. One more thing to mention with this is he did look at original sin. Really in two different ways. One is that it is a total lack of righteousness. It is a lack of goodness. So original sin is a lack of goodness. It is a lack of righteousness when we're born. When we're born, we are not born innocent and good. When we are born, by nature, we don't have innocence and goodness. That is original sin, and is something that definitely we don't rubs against the grain for us. The flip side of the coin of the Wesley and original sin is that it is also a natural propensity towards evil. Original sin is a lack of goodness, but also an intrinsic bent towards doing the wrong thing. So not only when we are born do we lack innocence, do we lack goodness, but when we are born, we have a natural propensity towards the wrong, towards the evil. What I like to say, and I think it's theologically true, is that we sin because we're sinners. The individual things that we do simply reflect what is already wrong in here. We are not sinners because we sin. Sin is the original nature, and the individual acts that we do, whatever they may be, simply reflect that. So Wesley and Original Sin, he could emphasize it just as strongly as Calvin, Luther, or Augustine, or anyone else in Western Christianity. And it was sort of a linchpin for his entire conception of salvation, in particular the new birth, which we'll get to next week. And here comes a really, really big but. There is a tremendous difference, though, between Wesley and Calvin on Original Sin. They could both look at Original Sin in very similar terms. I think Calvin would have totally agreed with everything that I just mentioned as being a Wesleyan emphasis on Original Sin. Come back next week to find out where they're different. Come back next week to find out something really startling about this notion of original sin, and in particular in relation to the new birth, in relation to our salvation. So with that as a cliffhanger, have a great rest of your day.